Hello, I'm Dr. Rathika Marsh and I am the spiritual psychologist. I'm an experienced psychologist and spiritual life coach, supporting you to feel embodied, empowered, and to live a life of passion, purpose, and excitement. So if you want to follow my episodes, then please subscribe. So my first episode is all about shame. So what is shame, first of all, and why is it that we get that sense of shame? Why is it that we feel that? Where does it come from? So shame is kind of part of our conditioning in society. So we are raised to fit into a society, into a community, into a group. And what that means then is that we create standards. So there's standards created at an early age, which we try to adhere to in order to please those around us, mostly our parents and our teachers. And so we subscribe to the norms and the expectation of our society that we are in. So for example, as a girl, you might subscribe to the idea of being well behaved, of wearing a dress, of presenting yourself in a certain way that little girls should present themselves in. And you might have a boisterous side of you, but you then suppress that part of you because you want to fit in, because you want to belong, and because you want to please your parents, you want to please the adults around you who are shaping you based on their societal norms. And so as a child, you are shaped and conformed into the rules of your society, where your behaviors are celebrated, that are seen as good, and where you might be punished or given negative messages around the behaviors that are undesirable. So as you develop into an adult, you then take on these standards that you create for yourself. And they can be really high standards if you have grown up in a community or a society or a family that has put those expectations on you. So when you fall, when you falter, when you don't meet those standards that you have set yourself as an adult, you can then start feeling these deep-rooted feelings of shame. And when you look at perfectionism is actually rooted in shame, because you want to maintain these high standards in order to be loved, in order to be seen as okay, and in order to be seen as enough. When you don't meet those standards that you've set yourself, you then have strong feelings around failure, and you get those deep feelings of shame. Now, the difference between shame and guilt is also important to note here, and lots of different people have talked about this, such as Brené Brown. So the difference between shame and guilt is that with shame, you are the person that is bad. There is something that is wrong about you. With guilt, you recognize that there is an act that you have carried out, or there is an action that you took which you feel bad about. So you feel that the action was not appropriate, or you feel bad about that. The difference with shame is that you feel that you are a bad person. There is something fundamentally in your core that is bad or wrong in some way. So let me give you an example here. Say, for example, you were in a situation with your friend and you had some kind of conflict. Somebody that is feeling guilt about that might be thinking to themselves, I shouldn't have maybe said that thing, and I wish I could take it back. I shouldn't have said that thing. The person that is feeling deep-rooted shame would be saying to themselves, I'm such a bad person. I'm an awful friend. I always say things that are hurtful. So you can see that there is a strong difference here between the two, between the way that you're talking to yourself through guilt and the way that you're talking to yourself if you're coming from a place of shame. And that shame starts being created from an early age. So that moment where you're given that message that you've done something wrong, but maybe it's not been made clear to you that it's the thing that you've done that is wrong rather than you that is wrong. At that moment, you're going to start developing these feelings of shame, and you're going to want to do everything that you can as a child to avoid that feeling again, because it's not a nice feeling. And that's where those standards start being created. And as an adult, most of us, when we feel those deep-rooted feelings of shame, we might not even recognize it. We just get this feeling inside and we think, I don't like that. It's really uncomfortable. It's horrible. It's icky. It's not nice. And so therefore, what do? We run away from it. We avoid it. We distract ourselves from it. We look at our phones. We drink. We eat the foods that make us feel comfortable. And we do anything that we can to avoid it because it's not a nice feeling. When you acknowledge it, when you acknowledge that shame, when you recognize it, and when you feel it, that is where the shift comes. Because when you feel it and allow it and accept it, you are showing yourself love and compassion. So love and compassion will always overrule and overwrite feelings of shame. When you're coming from a place of love and compassion for yourself, it can't survive. It's there, but it's like you are putting it out until it's dampened. And so it's so important to recognize it and allow it rather than running away from it. And to be approaching it with that mindset of, oh, okay, there's that feeling. There's that feeling of deep-rooted shame. Why is it there? You know, and have a look at that. Explore it. Why is it that you feel shame about certain things? Question it, write it down, explore it, because it's most likely from a message that you were given as a child. And this isn't about blame. You know, our parents raised us in the best way that they knew how, with the information and knowledge that they had at the time. But it's about recognizing that we were socialized as children, and with that socialization has come some shame, and the degrees of shame vary according to your experiences. So when there's this shame in our bodies, what do we do about it? How do we kind of move forward from that? So firstly, like I said, the first thing is to accept it and to acknowledge it and know that it's there. It's okay to have that feeling. It's okay. And it can feel horrible. It can feel really uncomfortable. I know this myself. But when you accept that those feelings are okay and that they are normal feelings, you can feel so much more relaxed about it. The next thing that is important to do is to really think about what life are you living? So what expectations are you putting on yourself? And questioning whether those expectations are working for you or not. So if your expectation is that I need to work out 7 days a week in order to be loved, in order to feel okay in myself, then you need to have a think. Is this working for me? Is this something that I want to live by? Are these standards making me feel good about myself? Or do I want to shift my standards a little bit so that I don't have those feelings of shame when I don't go to the gym? 7 times a week? How could I shift that so that it works for me more, and so that I can live a balanced life that enables me to feel okay in myself, but I'm still keeping fit and healthy? So it's not for me to decide what standards you want to live by, but write them down. Write down which aspects of your life do you have really high standards around. What do you want to keep, and what is it that you want to change? What is it that you want to shift? Think about where these standards have come from. Think about your community, your society, your family. What messages were you given? And you'll soon realize that you've been conditioned. You are, and we all are, conditioned beings. We have been conditioned to believe certain things about how we should be as people, about how we should be in order to belong, about how we should be in order to be seen as successful. So have a look at that, explore it with love, and find out where these beliefs, where these standards have come from. And it will be so interesting when you realize how much you have been conditioned into living a life that you feel is going to give you that love and acceptance. And finally, it's about teaching yourself. It's about reteaching yourself and unlearning everything that you have been taught, which sounds like a big feat, but it's doable. So if you've been taught certain messages about how you should be as a woman, then it's about unlearning those messages if they're not helpful for you. So if they're not serving a purpose, if they're making you just feel bad about yourself and terrible about yourself, this is your opportunity to shift that, to identify, okay, what beliefs are helping me here and what beliefs are actually bringing me down. What do I want to shift my beliefs to? And it's then about parenting yourself, about reparenting and teaching yourself a new way. And a big way that that can come through and create a shift is really listening and adapting the way that you talk to yourself. Do you get up and look in the mirror and immediately batter yourself and pick out the flaws and identify all the awful things that you have created in your mind about yourself? Or do you look in the mirror and show gratitude for your awesome self? Do you acknowledge all the amazing things that there are about you, about your body, about your mind, about the life that you live? And shifting that on a day-to-day basis is so powerful. So please keep all of these things I've talked about in mind. Try out the strategies that I've talked about. If you want to know more about me and you'd like to access more content, then please visit my Instagram page at @thespiritual_psychologist.